Do good work is not a label, but a way of living. It is the constant and diligent effort to achieve a new level of excellence in one's own life. It is the hidden inner beauty behind the struggle to achieve excellence. It's not perfect, but imperfect. It is the effort, discipline, and focus that often goes unnoticed. The goal of Do Good Work is to highlight that drive. The guests I have on this show emulate this drive in their own special way. You'll be able to apply new ideas into your own life by learning from them. We will also have one-on-one episodes with me where we'll dive into my own experience with entrepreneurship and leadership. Every episode is designed to provide you with ideas that you can apply and grow in excellence in all areas of your life, business, and career.
Today on the show, we have Mike Paton. Paton has been learning from entrepreneurs for most of his life. Today, he works hard to give back as an award-winning speaker, best-selling author, certified EOS implementer, and as the visionary of EOS Worldwide. Paton discovered the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS, a dozen years ago when he was trying to take a $7 million company to the next level. He was feeling stuck and a little bit more than frustrated, and that's what led him to his search to find Gino Wickman and EOS. Having run 4 entrepreneurial companies, Paton instantly recognized the power of this simple, holistic way of operating a small business. He quickly became a passionate advocate, joining the Professional EOS Implementer Community, and dedicated himself to helping other entrepreneurs get what they want from their businesses. Since then, Paton has conducted more than 1,200 full-day sessions with the leadership teams of more than 110 companies and helped thousands more of entrepreneurs by sharing EOS in dynamic talks and workshops across the globe. During that journey, Paton wrote Get a Grip, an entrepreneurial fable with Gino Wickman, and then succeeded Gino in the role of visionary for EOS Worldwide. In that role, he leads a close-knit community of more than 250 professional EOS implementers around the globe, each passionate about helping entrepreneurs run better businesses and live better lives. Paton lives in Minneapolis with his wife, Kate. Together, they have 5 boys. Excellent. Well, Paton, thank you so much for being on today.
It's a great pleasure to be here, Raul. Thank you.
Paton, with the experience that you have working with clients and with to put it lightly, the times of change that we're going through, how do you suggest leaders confront organizational issues head on during this current environment?
Boy, is that a great question and a great start to the interview. I think the first thing to do is remember that in times of risk and uncertainty and crisis, your team members, your customers, your vendors are looking to you to lead more than ever before. Mm-hmm. And it's tough because, there are many days over the last 6 or 9 months that me and my clients have felt more like we wanted to crawl in a hole and hide until all this goes away than lead. Mm-hmm. And so number one, I think my piece of advice would be just own your role as a leader and recognize that right now it's probably more important than ever before. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, almost all issues, problems, challenges, roadblocks require fact gathering, decision making, and action to be taken. Mm-hmm. And so, we teach a discipline in EOS called IDS, identify the real root cause of the issue, discuss it briefly, and then solve it for the long-term greater good. And that framework for decision-making helps you just take the first step. All right, what is the real issue? Mm-hmm. And then once you're clear on the real issue, then you can just move on to the second step. That's what happens to me when when you wake up in the morning, you don't feel like working out. Taking that first step out the front door is critical. And so just get in the process of issue solving and then stay in it until you've solved it for the long-term greater good would be my advice, as difficult as it can be some days.
Yeah, especially the resistance, and especially because when we have teams, they're secretly yearning to be led. And sometimes as leaders, we don't know all the answers. First of all, you don't have to know the answers as a leader.
That's right.
But it's also, there's a lot of maybe resistance when it comes to facing these issues head on? Like you mentioned, crawling into a ball and just wanting to stay away from it.
Well,
It's tough.
and I would say one of the things great leaders do is when they don't know the right answer, they say, I don't know what to do.
Hmm.
And then when you're surrounded by a team of other leaders, then you're opening the door to a robust conversation where we're working together to solve the issue. So I think that's a really mature approach to solving problems, is when you're stuck, don't act like it's your job to pretend you know the right answer when you don't. It's okay to say, I don't know. Here are 3 things I think we might want to do. Which one feels like the right thing for you guys? And then together, I found, especially in this very difficult year, a team working together and talking about every issue and all the different ways we might go is way more effective than some poor leader sitting by himself or herself in a corner trying to know the right answer to every darn question that comes up. It's exhausting.
Yeah. And then you can also have like leaders who you didn't know would lead step up, like get that opportunity as well.
Well, exactly. And I will tell you from personal experience, thousands of times I've seen the person least likely to be the expert on a subject that we're discussing come up with the right plan of attack, because they're not connected to all the roadblocks, challenges, and obstacles in that area of expertise. And so they're not afraid to say, well, what if we tried this? Or have you ever thought about that? And, truthfully, a third of the time they have no idea what they're talking about, and it's not a good idea. But a third of the time it is the right idea. And so that's why I say get everybody involved in this issue solving process and hear from everybody, regardless of your opinion of their perspective. And don't hold on to the belief that your job is to be right all the time. That's what holds you back more than anything else.
It's a huge mindset shift there as well.
For sure.
As leaders transition. I'm curious. So I know we talked about the resistance and talked about, sometimes not wanting to. Just on a personal opinion, how do you approach fear? How do you view fear? And how do you approach that?
Well, I think early on in my life, it felt like something that was chasing me. And it motivated me to work harder and be better than I would without fear. But I was scared by it, as you might imagine, and I'm not sure I always showed up as my best, most present, most complete self when driven by that, terror that comes with all people who work hard, right?
Yeah.
What I've learned to do is I've learned that behind the thing I'm afraid of is the opportunity for real transformation, whether that's something inside me that I need to let go of or confront or change because it'll make me a better man, or something that my business is dealing with. I've worked with 135 companies' leadership teams and done over 1,400 full-day sessions with them. And I can tell you that the real important moments in every one of those teams' journeys came when they confronted something they didn't want to confront and grappled with it, got in the muck and worked through it together as a team, and then moved on and left the fear behind. And so what I've learned to do as an older, more experienced person is I've just learned to find it, name it, sit with it as long as I need to, and then solve it, because that's where the really good work is done.
And that's really profound, because I know that even from some of my clients, or even what I've seen with other entrepreneurs, is that when fear, it can be like an anxiety motivator, but it also can be exhausting. And like you mentioned, terrifying, because it's always creeping up on you almost. So being able to identify it and sit with it, when you sit with it, it's mostly either, if it's business confronting, then like you just mentioned, the idea is focusing with the team. But if it's internally, it's maybe processing it yourself, breathing through it, or?
Well, I think it depends on who you are as a person. But what I found, this is just my personal journey, Raul. What I found is when I didn't name it and sit with how it made me feel, good, bad, and ugly, and I just steeled myself against it. Well, I'm not afraid. Screw that fear. Then I wasn't acknowledging the damage it was doing to my psyche, right? And so what I've learned, and I've done a tremendous amount of work with therapists and executive coaches and shamans and you name it. And so I've learned that I need to acknowledge the way something scary is making me feel, or I will just wrap armor around myself and try and pretend that I'm not affected by these things. And that's not healthy either. I think you need to stare down not just the thing that's scaring you, but also the way it's making you feel and affecting your life. And that's what I mean by sitting with it.
I really do appreciate you opening up and sharing that. And I think that's also shows transparent leadership and like authentic leadership. When you see that happening in teams, when you see that happening, let's say with your leadership team, your management team, or even implementers, like, is there a system or is there something that you've seen work well to have teams work through stress, work through difficult moments, just like that they're not functioning as they should?
Yeah, boy. We could spend an hour talking about that alone. There's a lot of approaches that will help, but I think, what we talk about in EOS is we talk about being open, honest, and vulnerable. And so a very common thing for an entrepreneurial leadership team is somebody gets upset in a session. Might be anger or it might be crying. I'm yelling or I'm crying. And then what happens is they shut down and they apologize. Oh, I'm so sorry that I got emotional. There's no place for emotion in business. Bullshit. Pardon my French. But I don't know how you can build and run an entrepreneurial company without getting emotional. We are all driven by passion. And so this belief that when we're meeting, I'm supposed to shut off my passion and never get angry and never get scared and never get sad or upset because of something somebody said to me is just baloney. And so what I try and do as the facilitator in these situations is I just try and create space for that stuff. Please don't apologize. It's normal to get frustrated. Crying is totally fine. Now, if you're sitting here crying for 8 hours and none of us can do anything until you're done, that's probably not fine.
Yeah.
Okay. But, sometimes you need to take a break. Hey, I tell you what, let's take a 10-minute break right now. Work through whatever it is you're feeling. It's totally valid. And then when you're ready to resume the conversation, even if it makes you upset again, that's fine. Let's just get through this together. And so it's stuff like that. I'll ask questions. Another behavior I see is, people shut down without getting emotional. They're trying to put a lid on their emotions. And I'll say, Sally, what's that eye roll all about? Or it feels to me like something's amiss. Can you tell us what you're feeling right now? And again, it's that sitting with it, Raul. It's giving people the permission to tell their teammates what they're grappling with right now. Because when you're pissed off because your spouse was supposed to take the kids to school this morning and forgot and you didn't do that, or online learning is driving you crazy, or you have a loved one with COVID or whatever, what most people do in a work environment is they won't tell their teammates about that. And so they're walking around with this shield on. And I find that letting that shield go is the key to being a healthier, more productive team.
That's really wise to be able to identify that as a leader or as a manager, just to see your team doing that, but also having the trust and having the safe environment for them to be able to express how they're feeling and express and working through that together.
Yeah. And I most of the time that happens, you can just feel the level of relief in the room, that there's tension. The stuff that causes tension is unspoken. And when something is spoken that scares you, everybody's tension on the team declines because we've all felt it. And none of us are as good at bottling up our emotions and preventing other people from noticing what's going on as we think we are. And so when everybody knows what's bothering you, what's making you sad, what's making you angry, then we can turn our attention to getting to the root of what's causing that feeling and solving the issue. But until then, we're all just sitting here wondering what the hell the matter with Sally is.
That's true. That's true. Let's flip it to the other side. Let's talk about growth. So, I mean, I've seen, different industries be affected by different trends happening, but also when it comes to setting up frameworks for growth, what are some of the things that you've seen work pretty well, as we're transitioning, obviously some to online, but mostly to remote or going to the office twice a week. But what are some of the frameworks you're seeing work well for leaders or companies today for growth?
Yeah. So, when in EOS, we talk about the importance of three things with your leadership team: vision, traction, and healthy. So vision is getting everybody 100% on the same page with where you're going and exactly how you plan to get there. And whatever framework you use for doing that, it's vital whether you're online or in the office, because most of us don't take enough time to validate that we're all 100% on the same page. So that's framework number one. Framework number two is traction. How in your organization do you help people focus on the right things and execute on them with real discipline and accountability? In an EOS company, we use ROCs, which are 90-day business priorities designed to help people focus on 3 to 7 things every quarter, not 37 things every quarter.
Yeah.
We use weekly scorecard numbers that help you make suitable progress every 7 days towards achieving your goals for the month or the quarter. And we use weekly to-dos to solve issues during the course of a quarter, and hold people accountable for executing on their weekly tasks. So we keep moving the organization forward. And so that's the framework EOS applies to discipline and accountability. And then the third framework I think is really important is healthy. And that's getting the team in your organization, and not just the leadership team, but every human in the organization to work together as a more cohesive, open and honest, functional team of humans, all trying to achieve the same greater good. And so those are the three things I think are essential. And, quite frankly, the only one of those things that's gotten harder in a pandemic is healthy, because it is a little more difficult to really connect with the humanity of the people around you when there's a video screen between you. But the payoff of operating as a cohesive, functional team is so great that I beg and plead with your listener, Raul, beg and plead with them to not use Zoom as an excuse for not connecting with one another. You've got to work harder right now to stay connected, because it's more important than ever.
And I want to dive into that. And I think there's a lot of hidden gems in that. So you mentioned not using Zoom, but people think like, well, I'm seeing you face to face. How else can I connect with you?
Yeah. And so I use Zoom 7 hours a day, and or whatever my clients in meetings or whatever. So what I said is, don't use Zoom as an excuse.
An excuse. It's more you can do more than just Zoom.
If it's the best you can do, connect via Zoom. That's why I say there's a perception in the world today that I think is untrue, that the only way to cinch a deal with somebody is to get on a plane, fly to another country, get in a meeting room with them and look them in the eye, eyeball to eyeball, and check them out and make sure they're the right kind of person. I think that's malarkey. I think it justifies a lot of global travel that is unnecessary. Okay. Do I prefer it to a Zoom conference? For sure. But is it absolutely necessary? No. You can connect with someone. We're connecting pretty effectively right now. I enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully you feel the same way.
I definitely do.
And if it's the best you can do, you've got to use the tools the world has given you to create something great in the world. So whatever you can do to stay connected, please do that. I'll give you another example, though. I have a friend who runs an entrepreneurial company in town, And she, about 2 months into the pandemic, noticed that this was becoming a problem. And so she's the visionary CEO of this organization. Every day, she picks a team member, goes to Starbucks and buys a fancy coffee drink that they like, sets it on the front porch of their house, stands down at the street, and has a conversation with that team member 20 feet away.
Yeah.
How they're feeling, how their family's doing, etc. That's just something she started doing to stay connected with her people and to send the message that you as an individual are important to me. And so that's what I mean by use what the world gives you. You can't swing by a coworker's office right now and say, hey, how you been? Hey, I know your daughter got married last week. You can't do that. So if Zoom's the best you can do it.
And then being authentic with it too. Like she showed that she cared. She did something out of the box and it was more creative. But if Zoom is if we have a global team, clearly we're not going to show up in front of their house if they're across the other side of the world.
No, that's exactly right. And the authenticity, you nailed it, because I know this woman really well, and she's not reading from a note card. So how is your family doing? She's asking questions that demonstrate genuine caring. And I think you can do that over the phone. We don't even need the video connection. If you genuinely care, that will come through in any conversation over any media that you choose.
And we'll pick that up with those three frameworks that you mentioned for the vision, for the health, and for the traction. Specifically, when there's new ideas that are coming through, and especially with a lot of communication channels not being open within organizations, how are you seeing that new ideas can be implemented in this environment?
Yeah, so again, I'll just talk about the way EOS teaches this. We use a 2-page strategic planning tool called the Vision Traction Organizer. It includes 8 questions. And one of the things we do that's really important is we revisit that strategic plan, the VTO, every single quarter. And we ask every one of the 8 questions again, and we say, here are our core values. Are they still right? Here's our core focus. Is that still right? The vision for an organization that's entrepreneurial is a living, breathing thing.
Yep.
And if you think you could paint it on the wall and never change it for the next 10 years, well, you're not running an entrepreneurial company. And quite frankly, I don't know a lot of big companies that run that way with the pace of disruption in the world today. And so that's all we do is we just talk about the vision at least quarterly. And when it needs to change, it changes. That's it.
Pretty simple and straightforward. I like that approach.
Yep.
I think one of my final questions, this is a fun question that I'm really interested to learn, simply because you're very organized. Everything with EOS is very streamlined and straightforward. So I'm curious, if you could only work for 1 hour a day, what would you focus on?
I would focus on people. I would focus on helping people understand what in their life isn't working exactly the way they want, and help them grapple with that issue and solve it for the long-term greater good. I'm driven by the desire to help entrepreneurs get what they want from their businesses. And it's amazing to me how an hour of concerted thought, sometimes with an advisor or a friend who you can use as a sounding board, can make what feels like a mountain of problems go away forever. And so that's what I'd do an hour a day for the rest of my life as happily as anybody working today.
Oh, that's amazing, Paton. For our listeners, what's the best place for people to go to thank you for this episode and learn a little bit more about EOS?
Yeah, I would send everybody to eosworldwide.com. That's a website designed to equip you with everything you need to use the tools we teach every day. And you can also find me in the EOS Implementer directory and reach out to me directly if you'd like to start a conversation. I'm here to help you as well.
Awesome. Well, Paton, thank you so much for being on today.
A great pleasure, Raul. Thank you.